So before we're gonna obviously me and you're together, we have a past, and but today we're going to talk about just kind of where you're at. You're in Texas, and the pandemic is everywhere, and you were a full-time musician, playing everywhere, doing stuff, got your own career, your own releases, had a full-time gig. Tell me a little bit about what you were doing, and then how fast when they shut everything down, just how the crickets happened.
Yeah. So I guess the first shutdown, we went through a series of two different shutdowns here in Texas. The first one lasted about 5 weeks, I want to say, and it started in March 14th. So let me back up. I am what they call a dueling piano player.
Yes.
For a company in Austin, Texas called Pete's Dueling Pianos. Aside from that, I've been a professional musician for the better part of 34 years. I play, my main instrument is keyboard, piano, and I've played for tons of no one that you've ever heard of. And
yeah, I love it.
But I mean, my philosophy has always been, I didn't get into the music business to be famous. I just wanted to make a living playing music. And
exactly.
That's kind of where my goals lie.
Well, you've been lucky. I know I say lucky, and I know you've worked, but it's very rare to be able to say I have an extended career of being able to, be a musician. So it's cool that you're out there doing that
this
in
year,
the big state.
Proven to me like how fortunate I really am.
Yeah.
And how fortunate we both are to do this for a living. But on to 2020, as your viewers no doubt know, South by Southwest is a major festival that happens in Austin. And we had been hearing rumblings of maybe a few things canceling at that event. And the way that it's set up, for those of you that may not know, is 1 week is all film and what they call interactive, which is all, people that build apps and computer stuff. And so like kind of all the nerds and / film people show up 1 week.
I didn't know that.
And,
so that's cool.
Yeah, it is kind of cool. I've gotten to be on some platforms with some large tech people. It's not really something I thought I could ever say. And then like 1 year we had we'll always have random famous people walk through.
Yeah.
As is in a documentary, Bill Murray walked through and he's just being Bill Murray. And then like Nicholas Hoult came through. We've had a couple of people from that show that was on for a while. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came through.
Wow, that's cool.
So we got those kind of people. And then musicians also come through and they'll stand there for 2 minutes and you can see it on their face. Like, I don't know what this is and I could probably do it better and I'm leaving,
Classic.
But anyway, so the second part of South by is where all of the music comes from, all the bands. And so like as the film people and tech people are exiting, then all the music people are coming in and they kind of overlap and it becomes this huge mashup of people. So
yeah.
A couple of weeks before South by was happening, we started hearing rumblings that maybe a couple of events might get canceled because of this still kind of, nebulous illness that was going around. And then I can't remember if it was about a week and a half before. I mean, it was almost no time for anybody to recover. The mayor of Austin just called it and said, we're canceling South by.
I mean, and that's millions of dollars of revenue and
specifics on that. I can give you some numbers that will make your head spin. You have to understand, Austin has become a tourist. I don't want to say tourist destination. I mean, a lot of tourists go there, but other than that, a lot of companies will hold their events there.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of conferences. And so South by is just one of the conferences, but that one conference alone, brings in $335 million for the city of Austin. So they lost that money. And then the hotel that is the main one that everybody stays at one of the guys there was telling me they were losing $5 million a day for every day that they were closed.
Oh my God.
And as near as I could tell, they're still closed. So I don't know how they're
right.
I mean,
so you went from playing every day, or 40 hours a week. I don't know what you did. I've seen you down there, but you pull shifts, and playing with different people and pitching your own, your own self out there, to like, there's a rumor, like, and I'm sure you're like everyone else, like, well, there's no way they will actually call it. There's no way they'll do South, they will cancel that. And then boom, canceled. So you probably had a week's worth of shows too, right? Didn't mean to overtalk you there, but you probably had all shows every day lined out for South by Southwest.
Yes. And it was like the dominoes were falling. Like, I think Ozzy Osbourne was supposed to play this year, and he was kind of the big headliner, or one of the big headliners that decided, I'm pulling out, Sharon. And then it kind of felt like dominoes after that. And then the mayor called it. And then, so outside of that, for me personally, my schedule for that club, that's what we call a 7-night-a-week club.
Yeah.
That's a week. That doesn't mean I'm playing 7 nights a week, but my schedule usually was about 5 nights a week. And then any night that I was off, I would concentrate on recording for whoever, or, producing for my own stuff. And we quite literally went from like that to zero to now the club's going to be shut down. And then we were shut down for about, like I said, 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then opened up for 3 weeks. And as we opened up for 3 weeks, trying to get back into that, we started at 25% capacity.
Right. I remember that.
And then we were trying to head to 50%. Right before they were going to give the okay for 50%, the governor of Texas shut us down again, and we've been shut down ever since.
I mean, and it's like I said, the reason I want to talk to you, it's an interesting perspective because, here in Eastern Kentucky, not just here, but everyone in their own world kind of sometimes feels like it's worse here. You know what I mean? Like, well, I know it's happening, but it's really bad here. But I mean, you're talking a major city or major area in Texas with millions of people and the music industry thriving to just complete full stop. And there's you, and then there's 10,000 of you down there that just got the rug pulled out from under them.
Yeah, it was a major, major deal. I've been fortunate there for a minute. I really thought I was going to lose everything. We were getting ready to sell the house. We didn't really know where we were going to go if we sold the house. I've got you can see behind me, I've got a studio here, but all of this stuff was on the chopping block for several days.
Yeah.
We're just panicking. We didn't know until I could call and make arrangements with all of the people that I owe money to,
Yeah.
And so and so here's another perspective too that we haven't really talked about. So Austin is a big music town, but New Braunfels, where I live, is settled between Austin and then San Antonio, just to the south of us.
Right.
San Antonio also shut down. So everybody shut down.
Yeah.
So not only, every musician for, and then actually we could put Houston in there too, because Houston is only a couple of hours away from here.
Yeah, that's true.
So basically every musician in South Texas went from, having good work to zero, nothing. And there were so many people that could work from home, but we just aren't those people.
Right.
And I tried to be an early adopter of streaming, and right about the time I started to stream, my computer that I do all my work on just decided it was time to die. And honestly, it was an 11-year-old Mac.
Wow. Over a decade.
Yeah, it was a little soldier for a long time. And it was really, really tough because I was watching all my friends do streams and I would talk to them, and some of them told me they were able to make decent money. And so I just threw my phone up on a tripod, for a couple of those streams. And it was okay, but I mean, nothing that was going to sustain us. But I really didn't want to stream again until I could get the quality up. And here we are 8 months later, and I finally
here we are. You're streaming, and it looks really good, by the way.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, obviously that's, where we've come to there, and really there's just this void from the last time it got shut down till right now. It's just like there's nothing. So your day to day has completely changed. But what about writing, composing, content, that kind of thing? Have you been a slacker, or have you been trying to come up, produce content while you're down? And I know emotionally it's hard to be in that headspace to like, I'm going to be creative and write 3 albums while I'm struggling, trying to survive.
Yeah. Well, so I was fortunate enough somehow during the summer. I got to jump back here about 3 or 4 years. I met these guys that I don't know really how it is in Kentucky, like what the Kentucky music scene is like as far as like artists that come from Kentucky. But here in Texas, you got the Nashville country music scene. Right. Here in Texas, we have like its own self-contained Texas country music. And it's just called Texas music.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it's mostly country bands. And so like an example is like this guy named Pat Green, this guy named Kevin Fowler, but they're part of a larger people like this guy named Wade Bowen and Zach Walter. You've got all these people that are somebody,
Right. And do they stay in Texas?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
that's awesome.
And it's the Randy Rogers band is from right here in New Braunfels. And they're about the only ones that you might hear of on a national level besides maybe Kevin Fowler.
Wow.
But, but they're all those people. I don't know if you're familiar with this Texas songwriter named Gary P. Nunn.
No.
He's old school. Like you know what? George Strait would be like maybe the most famous Texas music guy ever.
Right. Yeah. And I know George Strait.
Like break out of this circle. But he was never a Nashville guy. He was always so anyway, that's my long way around to tell you. So one of these bands about 4 years ago, I started deciding that maybe dueling pianos, I had all my eggs in that basket, and it was making me nervous because I had already been there by that point about 9 or 10 years. This summer would have made a full 12 years. About 3 years ago, I decided that I needed to start branching out and really meeting a lot of people. And through a funny story that I'll save for another time, I met this band and started playing off and on with them. And they understood that I'm, 5 nights a week and
right.
I'll do it when I can. Well, like they struck when the iron got hot. They were still working because a lot of these, like 2 things happened. And maybe this happened in Kentucky. The first thing that happened was a lot of people here are not, I'm not going to get political, but a lot of people here are, well, we'll shut down, but we're just going to do what we do, man. And
right,
so
yeah.
It's kind of a group of wealthy people that got stuck in their homes with nothing to do. So literally they would start hiring bands to come in and give like backyard concerts.
That sounds so Texan. I mean, that's awesome.
And so over the summer, I started playing with them. We'd go and we'd do these giant, like we'd go out to, we went out to East Texas to a town that you've never heard of and never will hear of. And this guy had like this 40-acre spread and he had pulled a big trailer out there. And he was like, man, just put your PA system up there and just do the thing. We got a bunch of people coming. And they had this gigantic barbecue and it was just a big party. Like all their friends from miles around came. And it was, what's weird about it is like they all knew Zach. They're all friends.
Right. So you were lucky enough to hitch your wagon with this kind of scene that was going on in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah. And so as the restaurants started to open back up, this particular guy, he started like booking every restaurant And it was kind of like, because all the restaurants that were open were ones that had a stage venue,
Right.
and they already had their restaurant license, and they could start bringing people in. And I'd say that was around July or the end of July.
Wow.
But it was just, it was only like one or two gigs here and there. It started really snowballing toward the end of the summer. But basically, it was like he was just big enough that they knew they could draw people with his name, but he wasn't so big that hiring him was going to break the bank. And
right.
The smart thing, he was cutting deals with everybody, just to get the gigs. And then, with the understanding that, well, this is going to go up a little bit later. So he's just smart business moves. But yeah, I was extremely lucky but they knew my situation. And they were like, well, just come with us, man.
Right.
So I've been with them since the summer. And
wow.
And this is what I'll say about it. The dueling piano game, for anybody that knows anything about dueling pianos, I made a really good living. Going back to the band thing, that I haven't played in a band literally since 1992, other than, and it was a 7-piece reggae band. And even back then we didn't make money. So
right.
Going back to a band situation was weird for me just because of that. But
yeah.
So, it was also because now I'm schlepping gear again, which is, I'm 48.
Right.
To go that long without having to really move a lot of gear. I mean, when I lived in Nashville, we moved a lot of gear, but nothing like this. I mean, like we'll do a setup, a tear down, another setup, another tear down, sometimes twice a day. And then I'll, like a couple of weeks ago, and forgive me if I'm rambling, but a couple of weeks ago, I had a gig where like Wednesday night we had a gig. So that's, a setup and a tear down. And then Thursday we had a gig. And then Friday we had a gig. So that's 6 setups and tear downs. And then Saturday I had a gig in the afternoon and then one that night. And that's how I'm stacking them up. So I had 5 shows in 4 days, but that's all those setups and tear downs. And that's just like, I've had to recondition my body.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's amazing though, that you're in this, like I said, in this kind of circuit, that this has been able to happen. I mean, around here, obviously, when I say here, I mean, Eastern Kentucky, where there's not a lot of population, where I'm from, there's nothing, there's nowhere to play. Everyone is abiding by whatever our governor says. You get to Lexington and Louisville, where there's 2 or 3 million people or whatever, not 2 or 3 million, 200,000 or 300,000. There's a few bands that are kind of, you can see that they're out there hoofing it. They're playing in the parking lot and they're playing with plastic over them on the porches. But a couple of them are my real good friends. Like there's a band Trippin' Roots that I've played music with a lot. They have been playing every weekend. It's been amazing to see that they jumped on the niche of like, well, there's still this place is going to do something if we give them a call, Well,
but it's also about and I'd be willing to bet that band would tell you the same thing. I am taking, the reason that I'm playing so much is because I'm taking every nickel and dime gig I can get. Aside from the band, they've been generous with me. I mean, still nowhere near what I was making when I was
right.
with the team. But I can pay my bills and not, and that's about it. But
right. Yeah, for sure. And Trippin' is that's what they do for a living, and that's what they've done for the last several years. So it was make or break for them. There was no plan B really. They just got to hustle,
So to cover songwriting, I think I have to cover a little bit of my personal life outside of music. 2 years ago, my mom passed away. And when she passed away, it was October of 2018. When she passed away, she and I were not on good terms, which was weird because I've always been on good terms with my mom. But at the end of 2017, we had the biggest argument we've ever had in our lives. And the painful truth is that I was so angry at her that I didn't talk to her. And then she passed away. how that affected my songwriting was, I basically invested myself in co-writing with other people. And so I wasn't really writing what I was going through. When my father died, I wrote an entire album about not only him dying, but I had lost a lot of friends around that time. We've talked about some.
Great album, by the way.
Well, thank you. I had lost a lot of friends around that time, and it was just a really hard time in my life. My career changed unexpectedly a little bit, and because of some of the choices I had to make, I was forced to make. People didn't want to talk to me anymore, and whatever. But so the way this was different was I aside from going to counseling, I didn't want to talk about it at all.
Right.
And so I really invested myself in co-writing with other people, and a lot of those songs have since gotten recorded and released, and so that's cool.
Yeah.
But then during the pandemic, since my computer shut down, I kind of was forced even further into co-write mode.
Right.
However, the last, I'd say 4 months, I'm starting to write some stuff that is like this last album that I did is called Rivers. And it's really like that record was a culmination of a bunch of songs that it took years and years to record. Like,
right.
Like there's at least one song on there that I wrote all the way back in 2012. And I was going to try to do the whole EP thing, but then the story behind that album is that I actually won this package where they were going to press my records for me and everything. And I was like, well, if I'm getting a record press, then I'm doing.
Put all the songs on there.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why that became a record instead of just like a couple of EPs and a bunch of singles. Otherwise, I would never have done it that way. But then this time around, I just kind of had this vacuum of like, I'd write a line here and there and write a line here and there. And then about 4 months ago, I guess the dam opened and I started writing a lot again, aside from the co-writing that I was doing. But I really started taking a lot of the co-writing into account for my own stuff. And really, so what's starting to form now that I'll probably start recording now that I've got my rig back together is they're all songs about, it's so weird because they're all songs about breakups. But my wife and I have been married for 26 years.
Right.
We've never, I mean, like, we've had rough patches, but like these are full on like breakup songs. and I like them a lot, Yeah. That's weird about it. So I'm thinking it's got to be some sort of a byproduct of 2018 into 2019 and 2020 with all the family stuff. And then this year being what it has been. And so I don't really know if I answered your question, but there you go. There was a really long answer for you.
So, Mike, the thing I've been hearing everybody talk about is the transition from being out playing and, you got your live rig and your live setup and you're doing that. And everybody is having to rush and figure out how to record at home, try to stream and that whole thing. How's that transition been for you? Being, you had this gig that you were comfortable with, your gear was there, and then all of a sudden you're like, I got to rethink this and I got to try to do something at the house.
Yeah. Well, the hardest thing for me was making commitments financially to any of this.
Yeah.
Because even though you can throw your phone up and stream, I streamed a couple of times at the very beginning of this, and I was not happy with the quality I was getting because of everything. I mean, because of the room noise, because of the video quality really didn't bother me. On the iPhone is pretty good. But I just, when it comes to audio, I'm a little bit more of a stickler. And when I would listen back, I just was not satisfied with anything that I heard. That stuff was it was maddening to the point where I just quit, even though it was a potential other income stream for me. Um, as far as performing for no one, seemingly, um, it was a little bit of an adjustment at first.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of experience with just sitting there playing, and
Right.
I knew enough to know that even though it feels weird, you just have to sit there and play. And so, but I think early on at least the first stream or so, I fell into the classic uh I kind of fell into the classic thing of hurrying the song to finish the song so I could get to the next song because
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable and let's go. We got to go. Let's go.
Yeah.
What I've had to come also like reconcile within myself is that if I'm going to do this, I'm also uh a brand,
Yep.
so I can't sit there and just play them songs. I
No.
can't really do the goofy thing with people. I just have to I have to start becoming a personality on camera.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing for anybody probably. But you're right, because people that are going to tune in, it's not like you're just they're clicking through channels. People know you. They want to click on your stream because they like Mike and what Mike does. So you can't just emote like this, I hate doing this, or this is boring, or it's uncomfortable. You have to turn it on, unfortunately.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was very fortunate. The very first stream that I did, uh, and I think it's still up on my page, but if you go on there and look, so the very first one I did was at an actual recording studio, and it was just this guy here in town that I know that has since hired me to do some recording for him, and that's another revenue stream that has been coming in for me kind of
Very
steadily,
cool.
which is great. Uh, but anyway, he wanted to try the streaming thing, and they already had the equipment. So I think they took a couple of days and kind of got it all up and running. And then I just brought my keyboard in, sat there and pretended I was doing a show. And it was about halfway through that stream when one of them finally realized, oh, maybe I should, what? Oh, there's people writing stuff here. And I was like, yeah, that's people writing stuff. Where's my PayPal information? And then, or whatever. I was like, I
Yeah.
started panicking. And then, but it's all the stuff you got to think of. And it's like, I think a lot of musicians have finally caught on, but maybe they didn't at the very beginning, that this is like producing another show. This is,
Exactly.
like when you go and even at that, you have to define your terms. Like if you go and and what I mean by this is, and I'm rambling again, I'm sorry. But when you Joe Blow go down and you're going to play at the local watering hole and you're just going to stand there on the stage and plunk the guitar and sing songs about floating down the river and drinking beer, whatever it is, and taking requests, you're producing a show. And I know a lot of people don't look at it that way. A lot of musicians don't look at it as producing a show. They're just like, well, man, I'm just playing for my buddies. And it's like, well, you
Right.
might, but you're producing a show. So you got to think about all the things that you want to do in that show, even if it is just standing there playing guitar and singing. I mean, you
Yeah.
really have to think about all that stuff. And then, when you start streaming, now you're producing a different kind of show on top of the one that you're already doing.
If you look like you don't care, or you look like you just threw a camera up leaning up against a Coke can, I think that there's too much, I just don't think people's going to hang out. And like what you were doing, like you said, I think we were talking maybe before or after we started recording, but you had to get that quality up. You had to get those cameras in there, like what you're doing now. I think it's shock, and I'm jumping around here, but it's shocking to me that I see a really good artist go live with a camera and they don't put their info. They're doing it so they can get some money and sell merch. They don't mention their merch. They don't put their PayPal link or Venmo link. They don't do any of that stuff. And then they're like, man, I played for 68 minutes and didn't make a dime,
I'm going to be open with some of these numbers. They're not huge numbers, but I'll tell you the difference between a couple of things. The first one where I was extremely animated towards people and very accepting towards people, or and where I was really paying attention to everything that was going on, um, and really doing a show, and even bringing in elements of the show that I usually do in Austin. Um, I think I made a little over $200 that night or something like that, and that's fantastic. If you can do that like 5 nights a week, then why even perform out?
Well, I mean, honestly, and those people want to. If you build, it's just like a fan base at the Dueling Barrels. Dueling Barrels. That's a brewery in my town. What is yours called? Dueling Piano.
Pianos, but Dueling Barrels sounds fun.
But anyway, you build a fan base there because I've seen you there, and people are, they want those songs. You build that fan base on a live stream, and people come back.
And
So
that was another big challenge, was really trying to figure out. And when I say that I've made a living doing music, I said it earlier, but I've made a living doing music, playing mostly covers. So like my entire career has been based on other people's music, but lately I've really been pushing my own stuff. So one of the harder things for me, and you probably went through this at some point in your career, was deciding how much cover music I was going to really push, and how much original material I was going to put. Well, so what I ended up doing was being a little bit more intentional with it, and just saying things like, "Hey, here's one off of Rivers," or "I wrote this one a few years ago," and I here's one thing that I know I said earlier, that like Texas music is really on its own aside from like Nashville country. But
right,
here's one thing that they do share in common. When I lived in Nashville, I'd go like to the Bluebird, or I'd go to other writers' nights or whatever, just to see what was going on.
right,
And they'd sit there and they'd talk about the song for a minute, and they'd say, well, back in 1968, I was going through 3 divorces at the same time, and or whatever the story was.
right.
So, and then I lost my dog, and then here's the song about me losing my dog. But they would build the story about it and tell you the story about how the
Yeah,
song. And Texas musicians do that too. They'll especially if they are like consummate songwriters.
right.
uh, they want to tell you a version of a story about why the song exists. And so I have found, as a tidbit for anybody that might be interested, I have found that people are really interested in where your music comes from, whether you believe it or not. They want to know, but that's, I mean, I feel like there's more people in the audience that you're playing to that want to know why you wrote a song like Gonna Feel Good, or, my song, the song that my record is named after is called Rivers. And it was because I literally just wrote out, like, I was born in the summer of 1972. It's all right there in the reason the album is called Rivers is because I live in a town, it's a river town, and I grew up in McAllen, Texas, which is in the Rio Grande Valley, which is on the banks of the Rio Grande River.
Yeah, that's cool.
But where I was born is the Trinity River is a big deal. So like throughout my entire life and through different portions of my life, like there have been these major rivers flowing through it.
Right.
And I don't want to, I mean, it sounds corny a little bit and cliche, but like it's kind of a symbol of, somewhat of a symbol in my life, and it's kind of a constant. And that's kind of where that song came from.
Hey, that's interesting. I struggle with that. I mean, I completely shut down in between songs because I'm afraid that people just like, come on, get on with it, do the next song. And it's good to hear somebody say that you feel that the crowd is mature enough to want to know where these songs come from, and hear a little bit of backstory.
I'm probably rambling again.
Hey, well, I love it. Here's the thing, though. We've talked about all this. We've talked about your setup at your house, and you have new cameras. You've got new gear. When are we going to expect some streams from you?
It's coming really soon. Now that the last thing that I had to the hurdle that I had to get over, we were just talking about a little bit. I was using OB. Hopefully it'll come back. There we go. The last hurdle that I had to overcome was the audio stream. For whatever reason, I could not make my audio stream work. The camera, I had downloaded a beta test of the Canon web utility app,
Yeah.
and it was not working for this camera very well until about a week and a half ago. They finally released the version, like the official version. It's out of beta now. I downloaded that, and wow, magically my camera came on.
Okay.
And then the very last thing that I had to overcome was audio. And it was kind of another thing. I was trying to get into OBS, and even on Zoom, like just none of the audio would work. And I finally ended up having to purchase an audio routing program called Loopback. About a week ago, somebody contacted me for a studio gig, and they paid me $100, and it's like,
I'm gonna.
so
Cool.
I said all that to say, now that all my audio stuff is worked out, you can start expecting regular streams at least once a week.
Very cool.
And they'll probably mostly be on Facebook. A lot of this is a learning curve for me because I've wanted to do it for a long time, but I just don't know how, and I'm learning as I go along. So,
well, very cool. For anybody who is watching this or have watched it, will watch it. Yeah, we'll watch it. Go check Mike out. I'm going to put all his links, Spotify links, add his songs to your playlist. Go check out Rivers. It's awesome. The album is great. It's just, it's still one of my go-to things I put in here at the studio and crank up. Mike, we're going to have to do this. I think we need to do this again, maybe on a regular basis. Just get together and talk.
let's do it. I'd love to talk about, music industry, music business, gear. You've got a new pedal coming out that I really want to get my hands on and play around with.
Yeah. Took me 2 days to film that 9-minute video, but I've got it. I just put the video out today. And yeah, I'm going to be starting some different shows for the store, which is, still creative for me. But anyway, yeah, let's get together and do this again, and we'll just try to cover some of the crazy things that people who are musicians are involved in, and you wouldn't believe it if you didn't live it. That's the kind of the slogan for me. You just wouldn't believe it unless you lived it. Man, it's been super cool. I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me, and we'll be in touch soon. You stay cool, stay safe in Texas, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you for having me. Same here. Right back at you, brother.
All right. See you, man.